And welcome to another episode of the Tar Heels Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Grant Chachere, bringing you all the latest details in regards to North Carolina Tar Heel athletics. Uh, it's been a pretty busy weekend, of course. It's always a busy weekend. It's always a busy week, and it's always a busy day. It's always a busy hour here in Chapel Hill. Of course, with football season kicking off already, we're entering week 3. Basketball seems it's going to be start picking up pretty soon here. Uh, there's been a few press conferences, and then there's going to be a few press conferences in the next month or so. And of course, October is when they kind of start doing the preseason stuff. And so it's gonna be really hectic next 2-3 months for everybody in Chapel Hill, and that's not excluding the students too, because the students, of course, they got schoolwork to do, and they got of course they're attending sporting events and football, and I think they're really excited for basketball, of course. And we're talking about North Carolina here, but it's been a really busy month. But it's been busy for me and for everybody that covers North Carolina Tar Heels, and uh, yeah, I'm I'm proud to do this. I'm really proud to be covering the Tar Heels. I really am. I'm not even a Tar Heel. I went to LSU. I'm from Louisiana. But this is one of those opportunities where you're just really grateful to be covering such a unique university and such a unique athletic program. But kind of getting ahead of myself. The reason why I'm doing this podcast today is not really to talk about it. Well, it's to talk about football, right? Of course, it's under that category, right? But I'm not going to talk about Bill Belichick and his issues with the Patriots. A whole lot pending this there. I actually have an article out about that tomorrow. I'm just kind of tired of talking about it, and hopefully it goes away. It's just, uh, I don't know. It's just I don't want to see two old dudes duke it out. I'm just tired. I'm tired of seeing. I'm just tired of the drama, right? But it is what it is, and I'll leave Bill and Bob to beef it out on the side. I'm not even gonna separate those two. So they can duke it out themselves. But the reason why I'm talking today is about the running back room, but more specifically, Damon June. Damon June, of course, is a true freshman. He is from Jacksonville, North Carolina, not Duval. But he is from Jacksonville, North Carolina. True freshman. And in the game against Charlotte, we got to see his debut. He didn't have any carries, nor did he have a snap in the game against TCU last in week 1. But was able to get some carries, and because right now North Carolina is still trying to evaluate, and I've said this in the last podcast. It seems like they're just a month behind, just because you have 70 new players, you have a quarterback who also was a part of the new 70 players. Remember, 40 players came after the spring, and Gio Lopez is one of them. So you have a quarterback still trying to get accustomed to the playbook. We got 70 new players plus the 40 that came after the spring. You only have a 2-week period where you could actually see them hit. So really they're still evaluating going into week 3. And they want to see what Damon June did. And he got 11 snaps, and 9 of those 11 snaps he got a carry. And he did a good job. He had 9 carries for 52 yards, which is 5.8 yards per pop. And he also was the only running back to have multiple 10-yard rushes or more. I believe it was 11, 16, and 19 were the three runs where he had 10 or more yards. And he also averaged 2.6 yards after contact, which totaled up to 24. So he had 24 yards after contact. That is the most of any running back. Davion Goss at 15, and Caleb Hood also at 15. He led the team in rushing. Gio Lopez was the second leading rusher, and it was good to see Gio Lopez, finally get it going, finally see him be himself. And I think the offensive play calling allowed him to do that. Although I still had some issues with the offensive play calling, at least you start to see them start showcasing Gio's abilities, because really the first game you didn't really get the chance to see that much. You didn't really get the chance to see Gio actually be like himself, because they were doing a lot of pro style stuff. And I made the argument last week that if you're going to do just a strictly pro style offense, then Max Johnson needs to be your quarterback. It's not because Gio Lopez is bad; he just doesn't fit the system you're trying to run. So I'm glad to see them use a system that actually benefits Gio and uses his strengths instead of showcasing his weaknesses in a pro style offense that doesn't fit his play style whatsoever. Yeah, and looking back at his week one stats, I mean, just looking back at week one, no running back had a missed tackle. Not a single one. And only one had a 10-plus yard run, which was Ben Hall. Go to week two, Damon June already has two in one game. Davion Goss also had two. But in the last two games, Damon June already has more broken tackles than Ben Hall and Caleb Hood. And he also already leads the team in runs with 10 or more yards. That was his first game. Those were his first 9 carries of the season. And he's already showcasing his explosiveness. He's already showcasing, not only explosive, but his physicality. He can break tackles. One of the biggest issues with the running back room right now is that it's not that they don't have pop, but every time they get hit, they just go down. It's not a very physical running back room. And the fact that a true freshman is your most physical running back is a little bit concerning. But also at the same time, it's not. Damon June should be your starter. He absolutely should be your starter. I mean, there is no way around it. Like through 9 carries, just going off the eye test alone, I remember turning to I believe it was AJ Andrew Jones of 24/7. I was like, this guy's your starting running back. I only saw a few carries. I'm like, it's him. And I know that sounds crazy to say, but based off my observations of the other running backs, no other running back has the pop he has the explosiveness that he has, the ability to make people miss, break tackles. I mean, Damon June looked the part. He absolutely looked the part. And when you're struggling look, I understand the struggles with the running game have a lot to do with the offensive line. The offensive line needs to improve its run blocking. Now, I've discussed that before, so I'm not giving the offensive line a break. Like, they got to block better at the run. But at the same time, when you do block better, when you have one-on-one matchups, the running backs are able to get 5 or 6 extra yards, and I get a 2-yard gain. For example, there was a play where Caleb put, I think it was like 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 2. It was a 3rd and 3 situation. And he was in a one-on-one battle with another defender. And he lost it. If that was any other running back, that running back would have got 4 yards. But you're relying on Caleb Hood, who, look, he's a good kid. He works hard and blah, blah, blah. But he doesn't have the explosiveness that he once had because he's been hurt. And really, none of the running backs in that room are speedsters. So a guy like Damon June, who has already showcased his speed. He not only showcased speed, but he can also be physical. He's 5'11", He's 5'11", and he's 215 pounds. That's a big dude. 5'11", 215. That's a good-sized running back. So not only can he display his speed, but he also has the physicality needed for a running back. Because once again, he's 5'11", 215. He might be, and that's his weight right at the time. He could be 5'11", 220, 225. So it's just a different type of back compared to the other guys. I mean, Ben Hall is 5'. I know Ben Hall is a pretty big guy too. I believe Davion Goss. I think Davion Goss is about the same size as him. But I mean, it's just a different type of back compared to the other guys. Like he's a more of a balanced back than the other guys. I mean, it's just that's what it looks like at the moment. And looking at the roster right now, Caleb Hood's 6'2", 220. So he and Damon Jr. are about the same size relatively. Ben Hall is 5'11", 235, and David Goss, yeah, is 5'11", 215. He's about the same size as Damon Jr. And I think if you had to go through a 1-2 punch, to me, it's Davion Goss and Damon Jr. Really, Damon Jr. might be your number one guy. He might be. Just because I think the speed element of his game is better than and David. I'm not saying Davion Goss doesn't have speed. I think Davion Goss was a better runner in the last game. It'll be very interesting to see how he performs against Richmond. And the same thing with Damon June. And really, to be honest with you, Damon June should get a good bit of carries against Richmond. I think you should allow him to do so to see what he can do with more carries. Let's say about 10, 15 carries. Give him about 10, 15 carries and see what you can do. Because that would really to tell you, was the Charlotte game kind of a fluke? But I don't know. I don't think so. Because we got to see some flashes of what he could do. And I think also, give Davion Goss and Damon June probably about between 10, 15 carries each, or even 15 to 20, depending how comfortable the coach staff feels like giving those two the ball a good bit. But I think it's becoming very clear that Damon June should be getting more carries. And look, all the running backs did good the other night. But I think Damon June gives you a different element. And then you could add him with Davion Goss, who's more kind of a little bit more of a bruiser than Damon June is. I think that should be I think you should stick with that against Richmond. And yes, Richmond is an FCS program, but they're still a good, solid FCS program. So it'd be very interesting to see what those two guys could do against Richmond, and then also moving forward, because remember next week you got UCF. UCF right now is looking really good, and you could say, well, they barely beat Jacksonville State 17-10. Jacksonville State also won their conference last year. They won Conference USA last year, so that's a very good program. They have a decent amount of guys coming back. I believe they are top 10 in rushing at the moment. They're a top 10 rushing team in the country, if I believe so. I mean that's a solid mid-major program, and UCF the next week also put up I think they put up 600 yards in NCAA. So that's a very good team. Scott Frost is a good coach. I know he had his issues in Nebraska, but remember what the job he did at UCF before he went to Nebraska. I mean, he's still a good, decent coach. He's still a good offensive play caller. So, UCF stuff, and also remember you're going to their place, and their place, they're 8-5 and 30 overall in the history of the stadium since it opened in 2007. It's a very tough place to play. You can ask a lot of the teams that play in the conference, in the Big 12 or the American, and even some of the old members of the conference will say, like, they'll tell you that UCF is a very, very tough place to play, and I mean, they're a top 25 defense, top 25 offense right now. By the way, how I mentioned Jacksonville State was a top 10 rushing offense. They're a top 20 rushing offense in the country. And by the way, UCF, they're 26 in rushing. Like UCF, like I said, like UCF has one of the best offenses right now in college football. And I think depending on how the Tar Heels play against Richmond, will tell you a lot about them going into that UCF game. Because if they have another sloppy game against Richmond like they get Charlotte, dude, I'm not really liking their chances Orlando. I really am not. Just because of how sloppy. Like, I think the defense will get better over time. But the offense, I mean, ugh. So, yeah. And because here's the thing. If you have those same performances like you did against Charlotte, who's not a very good football team, and then you have another bad performance against Richmond, who's an FCS team, it's not going to look too pretty when you go to Orlando. UCF has a top 25 offense. So you're not going to get too many breaks. You're not going to see much of teams like Charlotte anytime soon. So they got to get this right against Richmond. But that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Once again, I'm your host, Grant Chachere. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.